Back in 2007, a new star exploded onto the Hollywood scene, and everyone rushed to predict an incredible future for her. Critics compared her to Marilyn Monroe and called her the next Angelina Jolie. Her name was Megan Fox. Thanks to a single movie, her paychecks jumped from a few $1,000s to a few million. Magazines put her on their covers and crowned her the most beautiful actress of her generation. And yet these days, her movies mostly skip theaters entirely and go straight to streaming, somewhere between third-rate action flicks and projects everyone forgets in a week. So today, let's look back at one of the fastest rises in Hollywood history, the fall that came just as fast, and what is happening with her career right now. Because trust me, there is a lot to talk about. Megan's career started in the early 2000s. She popped up in a few movies somewhere in the deep background, including a blink-and-you-miss-it moment in Michael Bay's Bad Boys 2. She is genuinely hard to spot in there, but if you try, you can find her. And that little scene still follows the director around to this day because Megan Fox was only 15 years old during that shoot. People still rightfully ask how exactly Hollywood allowed a child to be filmed that way and where the celebrated director was looking. Keep that detail in mind because the relationship between Fox and Bay is going to come up again. More than once. After that mighty role, Megan moved up from the deep background to the second and third row. In 2004, she appeared in several projects, and the most successful one was Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, a comedy starring Lindsay Lohan. It was not a big hit, but on a $15 million budget, it pulled in about $30 million in the States. And it is widely believed that this movie, and the role Fox played in it, is exactly what got her into her next project. Transformers. Truth be told, the actress also got lucky. Between 2004 and 2005, she got bounced around a pile of auditions, showing up to each one hoping to become a star. The closest she came was the remake of the Amityville Horror, but in the final rounds, she lost the part to Melissa George. Quite possibly, if she had landed that horror movie, somebody else would have been cast in Transformers. The studio went through 10 different drafts of the script. Production stretched across a couple of years, and they started looking for leads way in advance. And that is where Megan Fox, completely unsigned and unwanted, came in handy. Although director Michael Bay immediately ordered her to gain 10 pounds of muscle, so for a few months, the actress had to jump on every piece of gym equipment in her field of vision. Oh, and her character in the movie was named Michaela Baines. Michael Bay. Michaela Baines. The filmmakers never officially admitted it was a joke, but you can draw your own conclusions. The only person who got anything resembling a real paycheck for Transformers was Shia LaBeouf. And even he, by his own account, refused the role at first, despite the personal persuasion of the movie's producer, Steven Spielberg. Megan Fox, meanwhile, agreed to work basically for a name in the credits, just like most of the cast. Tyrese Gibson even claims he had to pay the producers himself to make sure his name did not get left out of those credits. Besides herself, Megan Fox brought one more thing into Transformers. At least, that is what people often write, and nobody has ever officially denied it. The story goes that Linkin Park ended up in the movie thanks to her. Fox said she went to one of their concerts, and afterward, the band, who already knew she was cast in Transformers, met with her and convinced her to pass along their wish to be part of the film to the producers. Which is exactly what she did. In 2007, Transformers hit the big screen and went off like a bomb. The $150 million movie made $709 million worldwide. Hasbro sold a record number of toys in its entire history, and on the DVD market, the movie took the #1 spot for the year. After Transformers, everybody woke up famous, even Tyrese Gibson, who was immediately signed for Death Race, and then brought back into the Fast and Furious franchise. Shia's paychecks shot up from $400,000 or $500,000 to $5 to $8 million, and Megan Fox was not forgotten either. If her reward for the first Transformers was a friendly pat on the shoulder, for the second one she was paid $800,000. As for what the brands lining up at her door started paying her, we can only guess. She had bad luck with the 2 movies that came out between the Transformers films. She signed on to both before the first Transformers ever hit theaters, so there was no real money in them. Although the comedy How to Lose Friends and Alienate People did look like a career opportunity. Simon Pegg was considered a rising star after Hot Fuzz and Run Fat Boy Run. The $28 million project featured Jeff Bridges and Kirsten Dunst, and everyone expected a hit. In theaters, it scraped together $19 million. And her second comedy, an indie called Whore, flew right past the big screen and went straight to video. After the massive success of the first Transformers, the sequel was, of course, ordered on a brutally tight schedule. There was no time to properly rework the script like they did on the first movie, and then the writers' strike landed on top of the rush. So the film was shot from outlines that a couple of writers managed to bang out in 3 weeks. Spoiler alert, the box office did not care at all. Megan Fox loves to talk about how much she suffered on that shoot. First, Michael Bay was furious that the actress had managed to lose weight between the first and second movie. So Fox was prescribed a diet of pastries, supervised by a specially assigned person, and in 3 weeks she gained back the 15 pounds whose disappearance Michael Bay had personally noticed. Although this time, because of the rush, none of it went into muscle, and in the movie you can tell the actress got a little softer. But what outrages Fox the most is the scene where her character was draped over a motorcycle in tiny shorts. She insists there were 10 cameras rolling, constantly moving back and forth, and she was told the main camera was pushing in on her face, and everything else would be somewhere in the background where nobody would care. In the final cut, it turned out there was not a single shot from that main camera, but plenty of shots from the ones rolling around behind her. In general, the actress likes to repeat that she is nothing like the person the movies make her out to be. She grew up in an extremely religious family, and all those Michael Bay camera angles always made her deeply uncomfortable. And even though Revenge of the Fallen was shot practically without a script, which even Michael Bay himself complained about, in theaters it did great. On a $200 million budget, the movie collected $836 million. In parallel with Transformers, where Fox was locked into a 3-picture contract and could not demand crazy money, the actress managed to star in Jennifer's Body. And for that one, she was paid $5 million. Despite its modest budget, Jennifer's Body was one of the most heavily promoted movies of the year, all because of the names attached. The script was written by Diablo Cody, the author of Juno, which in 2007 turned a $7 million budget into $231 million worldwide. Cody was instantly declared a generational talent and showered with money, and everyone expected Jennifer's Body to repeat that success. It did not happen. The $16 million movie took in only $31 million. The director, Karin Kusama, who had previously made the even more spectacularly failed Aeon Flux, blamed the studio and the marketing campaign. In her words, the studio did everything wrong with this movie, and if it had been promoted properly, the box office would have been just fine. Megan Fox agrees with that take, and to this day she calls Jennifer's Body the best film of her entire career. Remember that one too. We are coming back to Jennifer's Body at the very end. Right after Jennifer's Body, the expensive Jonah Hex crashed and burned as well. A movie nobody wanted anymore, costing nearly $50 million, crawled into theaters in 2010 and collected $11 million. At that point, it became obvious. However popular Fox was, audiences were in no hurry to buy a ticket just for her. But the main blow to her career came from the third Transformers, or rather, from her absence in it. There are plenty of versions of why Fox was out of a movie she was already actively preparing for. At first, everyone blamed Michael Bay, who had supposedly grown tired of the actress calling him a tyrant in every interview and even comparing him to Hitler. But the actress herself never said Bay kicked her out, and the director denied it too. And once the noise died down and Fox was replaced by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, it came out that the person who actually snapped over all those comments about fascists on set and Adolf at the wheel was the movie's producer, Steven Spielberg. Bay would later say that after one of those interviews, Steven called him and demanded that by tomorrow, this actress have nothing to do with the film. Skeptics claimed Spielberg had nothing to do with it, and Bay simply hid behind a big name so all the bullets would sink into somebody else. But here is the thing. In 2013, when Megan Fox was no longer wanted by anyone, it was Michael Bay who gave her the female lead in his own producing project, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And since Bay repeatedly said he never held a grudge against Fox for her comments, most likely he really was not the one behind her exit from Transformers. As for Fox herself, starting in 2010, her career went sideways fast. Big movies stopped calling, except for that Turtles invitation 3 years later, and she ended up in projects like Passion Play, which her own co-star Mickey Rourke described as just one more terrible movie he had crawled into. Her fame did not evaporate overnight, though. She was still getting cameo offers, like her appearance in The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen. Landing a spot in This Is 40, a comedy by Judd Apatow, who was extremely popular at the time, could have counted as a small win. But that turned out to be exactly the Apatow movie that fell short of expectations, with modest audience scores and $88 million at the box office on a $35 million budget. Fox was already packing her bags for the B-list when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles postponed the trip. The first movie got hammered by critics, but in theaters it did fine. On a $100 to $25 million budget, it collected $485 million. The sequel was not so lucky. The budget grew to $135 million, and the movie barely scraped together $245. After that, there was nobody left to save the actress. After the Turtles, Fox headed into movies of a category that does not really have a name. When she made a rare attempt at something different, it turned out to be Zeroville, a James Franco film that sat on a shelf for 3 whole years and then got dumped straight to video. Then some professional somewhere decided to turn Fox into an action star. Who came up with that idea and why they kept going remains a mystery, but the actress showed up in a whole stack of action movies made for TV and streaming, with audience scores hovering around 4 or 5 out of 10. There was Rogue, where she shot it out with some very computer-generated lions. There was Midnight in the Switchgrass, from the late career conveyor belt of Bruce Willis movies, where Willis himself would drop by the set for a couple of days while Fox had to grind through weeks of shooting. To be fair, this stretch did produce one pleasant surprise. Till Death, a small thriller where her character, handcuffed to her dead husband, spends the whole movie surviving on her own. Critics actually praised it, and without any irony, it is one of her best roles in a decade. The only problem is that roughly 1.5 persons ever watched it. Then, a famous young gentleman who sings for a living entered her life. Machine Gun Kelly. And he brought along not just tabloid covers, but movies. In 2022, the couple rolled out Good Morning, a comedy that Kelly wrote, directed, and starred in himself. The audience score for this masterpiece hovers around 1.5 out of 10, and the Razzies handed the film a generous pile of nominations. Right behind it came the crime flick Johnny and Clyde. Judging by the ratings, everyone who watched it still regrets it. You would think there was nowhere lower to go, but Hollywood always has a surprise ready. In 2023, Fox was invited into the 4th Expendables movie. A big franchise, Stallone, Statham, war paint on her face. Here it was, the chance. In reality, the 4th Expendables became the worst film of the series by every possible measure. On a budget of about $100 million, the worldwide box office scraped together about 50. Critics gave the movie a public beating, and the franchise, by all appearances, was quietly buried afterward. The life raft turned out to be made of concrete. Ironically, the best role of late-period Fox turned out to be a machine. In 2024 came Subservience, a science fiction thriller where she played a household android that slips just slightly out of control. The movie barely touched theaters, but on streaming it unexpectedly took off and spent time in the Netflix top charts. By the standards of her current career, that is practically a triumph. The joke about which kind of character suits her best, you can finish yourselves. The actress, by the way, laughs that she was not cast in that role by accident. Meanwhile, just as much was happening off-screen. In 2023, Fox suddenly published a poetry collection called Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, all about toxic relationships and everything that had built up over the years. Laugh all you want, but the book shot into the New York Times bestseller lists. Her relationship with Kelly, meanwhile, turned into an endless series. Engagement, breakup, reunion, another breakup. and in 2025, the couple had a daughter, the actress's fourth child, after 3 sons with Brian Austin Green, the star of Beverly Hills 90210. And that brings us to today. Since Subservience, Fox has had no major releases. She turned 40 this year, and climbing back to the level she stood at around 2010 looks like an impossible task. But there is one thing. While her career was rolling downhill, her biggest flop, that very same Jennifer's Body, lived out the opposite story. Over 15 years, the movie transformed from a box office failure into a cult classic that a whole new generation of viewers has taken apart, quote by quote. And now the press is reporting that a sequel is in the works, with Karin Kusama back in the director's chair and a script by Diablo Cody. The circle is closing. The movie that once failed to save Megan Fox's career might turn out to be her second chance. Will it work? Big question. But the world, as we know, is a strange place. Maybe Megan Fox will get lucky. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.